All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting to session. I'm going to call the roll. Greg Bellin is here. Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Present.
All right, also in participation is Mrs. Walker, Mr. Barr, Mr. Vizana, Mr. Mayor, and Mrs. Buccigross. All right, so first up on the agenda is audience participation. Seeing none, I will move forward. I'd like to move forward to the approval of the minutes from the February 22nd, 2022 Finance Committee minutes. May I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Mr. Post seconds. Any discussion? All right, all in favor. Mr. Bellin, aye. Mr. Fury?
Aye.
Mr. Post?
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved 3-0 as submitted. Next up on the agenda is the 2022 permanent appropriation presentations. And we're going to start out with Chief Mason from Police.
Yes, so you're going to skip forward in your packets a few pages so that we can do police first. So Chief Mason, if you want to come on up to the microphone. The first couple things for police, we did update a few line items for them. The schools had asked for an additional SRO part-time. They are paying the full cost of that additional part-time officer, but we just needed to add in the budget amount for that. We have
So
an
when
increase.
you say they're paying the full amount, that's medical?
Well, it's part-time, so there's no medical.
Okay, my mistake.
To clarify what Mr. Fury said, though, any and all expenses.
Right. The part-time SRO was additional, and there was a separate contract through the schools for that, and they're paying the full cost of that officer.
So,
Yes, it's zero.
it's never net zero. And watch where I'm going. So, who is our resource officer? The third, who's our next resource officer?
Well, currently, the part-time position we're speaking of,
Yeah.
it's Craig Bremner. He retired, Sergeant Bremner
Right,
retired.
so is he to come back as a sergeant, he come back as a,
Nope, he's back as a
has to
part-time
take all
police
those
officer.
stripes off his uniform?
Yep,
Okay,
yes.
all right. So is he, when he's part-time, is he only part-time during the school season? And he's
Correct.
off in the summer, so he gets the same days off the teachers do?
Basically, yes. If they have a snow day, he's off.
Okay,
So the only
Fine.
exception may be this summer, we may use him for safety town.
okay.
Which would be a small amount of hours, but he will not be working the road. He will not be accruing, a salary from the
Thank
police
you.
department.
I'm good.
Okay. The next line item that we increased was police training, and Chief Mason can speak a little bit to the state of Ohio regulations that were put into place for the training hours, and we are getting reimbursed for the cost of the hours for the officers to go to that training as well.
Right. They've mandated 24 hours this year to start in certain areas, and it is mandatory training. We have put some things in place. A lot of it will be done virtually or in-house. With what Sarah was talking about, the money that was kicked back from the state, we are using to bring in an instructor for a portion of it. But yeah, there are certain topics this year that are mandated.
And then the last item that we had a increase on was their operating. And this was because their gun replacement program that was approved with the temporary budget came back at a little bit higher cost. Do you want to speak to the change in what we were purchasing?
Right. Initially, they were looking at changing the firearm, sticking with a Sig Sauer. We currently carry a .40 caliber. They were looking to change to a 9mm, just a different caliber gun, which would necessitate an entirely new gun. But along with that, there's certain other expenses. There's a different sighting system. There's a different holster. Price increases from the manufacturer,
Sure.
things like that. So what was initially budgeted last year had been gone up a fair amount, yeah.
So I see in the police capital, you also had $50,000 for a 911 system. Is that allocated to the dispatching center?
Yes, yeah, that's what she's currently been dealing with as far as the phone.
Yeah, if we flip forward to police capital, that 911 communication system is under dispatch, but we're still paying for it under that police and fire levy. as communications dispatches in with
Fine, I'm trying to
police.
get I'm looking for a cost of what the dispatching is this year,
Okay.
including capital.
Sure, yeah, and one of the items, if we can flip back real quick to our departmental updates. One of the things that we need to start looking at is the maintenance of that dispatch center. That's something that Chief Mason had on his budget memo last year, that we need to start looking into the upkeep of all that technology that we put into that room. So we'll probably have more numbers on that as we look into what that long-term maintenance looks like for in there.
Okay.
Okay. So Chief Mason, if you wanted to speak to those couple departmental updates that we have on that slide there.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we're looking as the first one goes, the online scheduling software. We're looking at incorporating a software system to manage our scheduling, much like the fire department does. We're pretty much antiquated in our system. We don't have anything that's accessible on any type of mobile device or for the officers to access from home. So we're looking to implement something there. Ammunition, if anybody has purchased any ammunition, yeah, it's pretty much gone through the roof. And when you can find it, we've been buying it when we can find it. Anticipating the transition to the 9mm, we've been buying it. We've been buying the .40 caliber to use for our practice ammunition now. You're never gonna lose money on the ammunition. Let's see. Okay, we talked about the mandatory training. Dispatch, okay. Dispatch, if you've heard me talk or heard dispatch talk, we've been down essentially 3 full-time dispatchers for about the last year. They did just hire one. Chris Yakupovich was in the process of hiring another one. Full-time. We're trying to get some provisionals in here, and then they're looking at giving a test in late July. So, and then, yeah, Solon, the arrangement we put in place with Solon years ago has worked out tremendously. And yeah, as it states there, especially with COVID, we weren't utilizing their facility as much. And I don't remember what the percentage is, but they did kick
I
back
think
the
it's,
percentage.
if we're so far below 300 prisoners, I think is what it is, and we got, I want to say 10% back or
Yeah.
20% back.
It was like 10 or 20%
Yeah,
back.
I think it was,
That's good.
I think it was 5 digits. I think it was like 10 or 12 grand, maybe.
Right. But in light of how well that's worked out, there's no reason to get away from that.
Okay. Chief, when you go, you mentioned the cost of ammunition there. When you go to the new weapons, is that a specific date, or will you just roll that out as new weapons are necessary? And
No, we're looking to transition later this year.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So it'll be a specific date for everybody all at once?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
And
it
then will there be, what will you do with the old ammunition? Will you just use it, or for
Yeah.
training?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What we're using it. Our range staff is pretty good. They've have a tentative timeline for when we want to transition to the new weapons, as well as a complete training schedule, so they know about how much ammunition we need
Okay.
from this point out. As you know, we have two hires, cadets that we're putting through OPATA right now. We had to supply them, I think it was 1,000 rounds each.
Okay.
So it's been measured.
Okay.
We know what we need. About the time we transition, we should be done with the 40
Okay.
caliber.
So, okay, right. Reason I'm asking, we're not going to have to deal with either using up or selling, hundreds of thousands of rounds.
No,
at the
no,
end of
sir.
it. Okay.
No.
All right, cool.
No,
Thank you.
they've been pretty diligent in doing their homework and figuring it out.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, what's the switch? Why switch?
I wish I had one of my firearms guys here to explain to you. This is what I can tell you. The 9mm is pretty much what everybody's going to now. It's a smaller round. I believe it's a cheaper round. You can get more magazine capacity. They've made tremendous advancements in 9mm weapons from what they had years ago. We're pretty much about coming up on 10 years with these sidearms, so it's about time to cycle them out anyways. And I can't give you any more specific than that, other than
That was enough for me.
my range staff says that's the way to go.
That was enough for me. I was just curious if there was a wow reason or just?
Yeah, no, just what I said, the capacity, the technology,
Right.
cost.
So the one item that we did want to point out on the upcoming capital needs are the current cruisers. So if you remember, we paid up front for this current set of cruisers on our 3-year lease financing. We own the vehicles at the end. So we just made our third payment this year, but we've only had the cruisers for about a year and a half.
Essentially about a year in service.
A year in
little over a
service.
year.
So because of that, we won't go straight into another cruiser lease. That was $180,000 a year. So Chief, if you want to speak a little bit to what we might do with some of that lease payment savings.
Yeah, it's turning out, you guys are pretty much geniuses because, you know, when you guys and my guys are geniuses, because when we put together the proposal for the hybrid, you know, Sergeant Waltz, I got to give him a lot of credit for that. It's worked out probably better than we anticipated as far as the wear and tear on the vehicles. As you know, it's a hybrid. So what kills a police car a lot of the time isn't necessarily the mileage, but the hours. Those cars spend hours upon hours idling, accident scenes, things like that in the summer, you know, everything running. So with the hybrids, it transitions over to battery, you know, when it's in that mode for a certain amount of time, and it saves a lot of wear and tear on the engine. So if you talk to any of the mechanics, they'll tell you what we're saving in oil filters, things like that is tremendous. They've worked out really, really well for us. As Sarah said, we made the last payment, and we've essentially only had those cars on the road for about a year. Part of that is due to, they're 2020 vehicles. However, we didn't really get them going on the road until late 2020, early 21. Part of that is due to the pandemic, shut down Ford for a while, so we ended up extending the life of our other cruisers longer than we anticipated. Part of that is the changeover. It's a completely redesigned vehicle, so when they shut the line down to, you know, build a new line, there was a little delay there. So what that did is it's buying us more time. We anticipate having these vehicles in service for 3, maybe 4 more years, which is tremendous considering we just made the last payment.
Paid off. That's great.
And that's for the entire fleet. Now, the exception to that is the sergeant's truck, which is a gasoline engine. Again, we're anticipating hopefully 3 to 4 years. If anything, maybe we'd look to replace that 1 year earlier than the rest of the fleet. But again, it's a tremendous cost savings.
And that's the only truck like that in the fleet, correct?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
It is. You know, the other thing I want to address is going forward in that time where we're away from a lease payment, I would look to maybe replacing a couple of our aging admin vehicles. 2 to 3 administrative vehicles, you know, possibly next year, is something that I would like to do. The other thing is when these current crop of cruisers does come out of service, we'll be able to utilize them. The SWAT vehicles we have now, the SRO vehicles, the backline vehicles we use, they're getting pretty old. They're just aged Explorers, a lot of wear and tear on those, and I would anticipate these, while those cars may not be able to continue beyond the 3 or 4 more years I'm talking about, in a full-time rotation, I think as a backline vehicle or vehicles for the SROs, I think we can utilize quite a few of them.
Cool.
So it's worked out really, really well.
So then, Sarah, then do you then not have, for 2022, are you not putting those costs into that budget? Or, because we're paid off the 3rd year of the lease, right?
Right, so 2022, it is in the budget.
It's in there, okay.
And we made that payment
Okay.
just in the last couple weeks. For 2023, though, we won't have that lease payment
Okay.
in the budget.
And then the idea would be in the next year, we would figure out roughly what vehicles we would want to replace in 2023.
Yeah,
And
I'd
we
look
put that number in.
Yes, that would be just 2 to 3 admin
Okay.
vehicles if we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and so then the last thing, we've talked about most of the items on their capital list. We did want to quickly mention the live traffic camera system, just because it is going up in different intersections in the city. So Chief, if you could speak to, just in case you guys get any questions from the residents on those going up.
Sure. And some of you may have heard me talk before about, it's called Flock, is the camera system we went to. It had been budgeted by Chief Noga as far to put in a stationary camera system I decided, looked into, presented Flock. Flock is a license plate reader camera, but it does a lot more than that. The technology's just amazing. There's a lot of jurisdictions around us, Macedonia, Hudson, Aurora, Solon. They're all utilizing these cameras and they all interface with each other. It's a tremendous tool. The cost was basically apples to apples with what had been budgeted, the old system. As Sarah stated, 6 of the 12 cameras that we have going in place have been installed. And we're going to be able to virtually cover just about all the major, well, we will cover all the major entry points to the city. We'll just about have every entry point to the city will be covered by camera now.
Is there the ability to charge for speeding or traffic?
No, it is not a radar camera. It's not a traffic enforcement
Thank
camera. No, sir. No.
Okay.
So, yeah, you may see, like I said, about 6 of them have gone up already. They're mostly mounted on mast arms. Don't really stick out. You know, if you're really paying attention, you may see some of those mast arms, you see preemption systems, things like that, and you may notice, you know, one of these cameras, but they're pretty unobtrusive.
Are those running in a 24/7 capacity, or are they something where you turn them on, turn them
sir.
off? No.
24/7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very, very cost effective.
Chief, is that, can you set those up to recognize and identify specific plates, or if there was like a bolo for something and something happened in Solon, you could
Yes.
activate our cameras to,
Yeah, so those cameras will automatically, what we call hit on something, if it's an entered stolen vehicle that's been entered by Solon. Entered, I mean, into the system as stolen. Once it enters Twinsburg, we get an alert. The cars get the alert, the dispatchers get the alert, officers can get the alert on mobile devices. We do have the ability as well to say it's not a stolen vehicle. I use the example of a resident that, a stalking type situation. You
gotcha,
have the ability to track a plate if it does enter
give
the
it
city.
a specific set of parameters and
Yes, sir.
it
Yes, sir.
hunts.
And not just the plate, you can search for certain vehicles by description alone.
Sounds pretty cool.
Is that what ours are gonna look like? I just looked up Flock. I'm just curious if that's what ours look like. Flock safety.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They're
Are they solar?
coming out with a new generation. No, these are actually hardwired in.
Okay,
They
because the
do-
ones here show solar, so I'm
They
just curious.
do offer a solar, however, they're not quite up to speed as what the hardwired cameras are. So when you have the ability to hardwire them, they recommend hardwiring.
That makes sense.
Nice.
Yeah. That's
Sounds cool.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I know they're supply issues, design issues, things like that. They're transitioning to a new generation of cameras, so I'm not sure if that's the exact.
Yeah, but that's the
So,
ballpark.
yes,
That
yes.
just helps me picture the size and what a ballpark looks like. It's
Yes.
Yeah, they're not big.
That's not big.
No, not at all. Not at all. So it's amazing technology.
So if we get questions then from residents, it's fair to say they are not speed enforcement cameras.
Not at all.
They are there for public safety, tracking of stolen vehicles, Amber Alert
Yes.
type things, those kind of
Yes,
things.
yes,
Okay.
and it focuses on the vehicle and the plate.
Okay.
Because typically the cameras, not typically, because the cameras are set up to catch vehicles coming into the city, they're focused on the rear of the vehicle.
Okay.
License plate area, so it's not going to capture pictures of,
Okay.
you know, the operators
you.
of vehicles, things like that.
Thank you.
Well, I will say when my car was stolen about a year ago, police did an amazing job of knocking on doors, going from nest camera to nest camera to nest camera, figuring out that my car was used to steal other cars in Reminderville. And then police went down and got it on the west side. I didn't even know, my app told me exactly where my car was.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job with all that, and I appreciate that very much.
And again, this technology just interfaces with, there are so many departments in this area.
Yeah.
You know,
It's awesome.
just
That's pretty cool stuff.
yeah, it's amazing what they can do. So,
Cool.
We should put that out on, is this going out on our Twinsburg email, mass email, let people know ahead of time that, hey, these cameras going up, don't worry, they're not speed cameras or, you know, just,
Add it to like a monthly mayor.
that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That way, better to get it out to the people.
It's all running correctly.
But if we already have 6 up, people are gonna start to wonder.
Hey, if it slows them down,
Right.
Is it a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing.
No, I just, but they will question, of course.
Yeah.
Why are there cameras?
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for Chief?
I like your sweater.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thanks, Chief.
And ladies and gentlemen, just so I don't appear rude, I thank these people here, they let me go first. And again, not to appear rude, but I will be leaving to attend a cheer banquet, so.
Enjoy.
Take care of that.
David, did you leave your keys in the car and someone stole your car?
My daughter did. However, she learned that from me. Although if she went to my car right now, she might be able to do the same thing.
If your keys are in your car, it will not be there at the end of this meeting.
All right, next up is Mr. Campbell.
It's a white Acadia.
If you want to do the service part of the slides, and then we can have Nate come up and do the wastewater part.
Let's do service.
Okay.
And I have Dennis Ski with me. Come on up, Ski. If there's any hard questions, I'm going to defer to him. So.
Yeah, nobody knows who Dennis is, so just
No?
Ski's fine.
I thought, oh, okay. When did you become general superintendent?
6 months ago.
Yeah, Ski's been general superintendent for about 6 months for service, so.
For some other buildings, nice.
Might be his last. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, so that's one of the items that we have up front on the 2022 budget for service is that they did come back up to full staff. So the foremen were backfilled, the superintendent was backfilled, and I believe we're full staff on the maintenance crews, right?
Yeah, we currently have one opening. That's
One
for
opening.
the gardener. So.
Oh, yes,
But
that's right.
But yeah, we ran with 2 foremen for a while. We're back up to 3. So yeah, we're back up. And then, as this note it says, the no seasonals in 2020. So we
Yeah,
did
that's
that
why
last year. And
number is not really comparable because
Yeah.
we didn't do the seasonal hiring. So the main increases on the service side were salaries and wages, one because of that coming back up to full staff and the contract language changes from last year. And then we also had an increase on the miscellaneous contractual side for the waste management contract increases. But they did reduce a couple line items, other places in the budget, to try to offset those increases a little bit. So Chris, if you want to speak to the service side of the departmental updates.
Okay. Summer afternoon shift is back for 2021. We put that together several years ago, and we have 2 people that run afternoon shift in the summertime, keeping the parks cleaned up. They actually help with grass cutting and miscellaneous things, and it's proved to be very, very. It's been a great thing that we've done. With COVID and everything, we kind of suspended that for a while. And definitely saw a difference in the condition of our parks. We have picnic shelters that are rented and all that stuff, so clean up, bathrooms and what have you. We've got a lot of activities that go on in those parks in the evenings. So this year we're going back to 2-person crew, and then they help out at other Rock the Park events and stuff. So it's a great 2-man or 2-person crew that we've got. So that is back. For a few years, we haven't done much training. And when you look at the training, we've got safety training. We have a lot of different job skill training. We've got a couple crews out pruning trees right now. And everybody that's on that crew has been trained. So makes a huge difference, and it's nice for us to be able to tell residents, hey, these people know what they're doing. And if you see you look at any of the streets where we've pruned a few years ago, you can see a huge difference. So the job skills training part of it is extremely important. We do a lot of different things, so we've asked for that money back, and that's it's a little bit of an increase in the budget. Salt prices have come down. I guess there's a little more competition out there. what were we, 39.23. We were up to almost 50, was it 59 and higher? Yeah, $59. So it's a, those kind of things are huge. I mean, we order 1,000 tons at a time. So you do the math on that, and salt prices could, it's huge. You could be up to $500,000 a year
Wow.
in just salt.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago when there was a salt crunch. What we were shipping it in from
For
Egypt for $100.
Yeah,
$100
coming
a
in
ton
on
or something like
barges.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
$100 a ton.
Yeah. Okay.
You buy 1,000 tons.
Yeah.
It's,
So we're at 39 something
Yeah.
next year.
yeah. We're
Okay.
that was for this current year.
Okay.
We're out for we're with the ODOT program,
Yep.
so they're out for bid in April or
Okay.
May. I'm sorry.
And, and where do we stand with? I know that in years past we have had issues with just storage of excess salt. Are we okay
Right.
there?
You saw how clean the roads were
Yeah,
this year.
right. Yeah.
We're good on the salt.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, you guys did an outstanding job.
It's
Okay.
worked out. The guys did fantastic, and we're gonna come out just about right on track.
Perfect.
Oh,
So,
great.
Yep. So that worked out really, really well.
About how many tons do we use a year? I'm just
It's funny, we've used over the years as low as 4,000 tons in a year, and we've used as much as 12,000 tons. Back in, I think it was '06 or something like that. But this year, we're around about 4,500, right? Yeah, right about 4,500 tons. So, like I say, you do that
Hopefully we're
math. and
Yeah.
hopefully we use no more.
I'm done. Yeah. So, okay. So you want to go over upcoming needs?
Yeah, the main one, the service garage, if you want to speak to the RFQ that we're working on.
So we've been looking, we know we need a service garage. That's the one thing we do know. What we don't know is we've got a lot of stuff packed in our current building. The way I wanted to approach this was to actually look at have a company look at what we do, and tell us, okay, here's how much physical space you need. Once we establish that, then we look at the current site and see if it's adequate. I doubt that it's going to be. And then we look at options. So we want to do this with a design, a study phase to see, we've got the sign shop and we've got the woodworking shop and the mechanics. And really the mechanics are just squeezed into like a 2-bay arrangement. So we want to look at our needs and look at the design. If we were to satisfy everything we need, let's look at that and see what it is. And then you can go from there. But I think one of the big things is trying to decide where it should go, because I just don't think that it will fit in the same footprint that we're in. The other thing, you see here, a salt dome. We need a salt dome really, really bad. So if somehow we're going to move that facility, move it to a place that would accommodate a salt dome as well. So
Because our current salt dome isn't big enough?
it's not for the way we have to purchase salt.
Okay.
So, and we take over part of the property of the wastewater plant and store some salt there. So Nate's glad to get it. So
Fill our salt dome right now is 1,800 tons we could fill in there.
Okay.
And that's like two
Eight-
storms.
1,800 tons?
1,800 tons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What we'd like to have is something that, there's 5,000 ton domes out there. They're big. But it would help us in those years that there is a salt crunch. Maybe we get a heavy.
Because you don't care if it sits there for a year, it's still good because,
It's covered.
Never evaporates as long as you keep the moisture out of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's covered, so, yeah.
front end loader fills the 5-ton trunk and it goes on its way.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, so.
And then on Public Works Capital on the service side, there's really no changes, but if there was any final questions that anybody had on the items that were approved, they were approved through CIB, through the permanent budget, or the temporary budget process last fall. But if there are any final questions that you have on any of those items, just let us know.
Nothing for me. Anybody else? No. Just to back up 1 second, Chris, on the service garage. So when do you anticipate that study being done?
Amy is actually working on an RFQ.
Okay.
Right now, we're going
Okay.
to send out for that, so.
Okay. So couple months, 6 months?
I would say a couple months, right?
Okay.
We should get them.
I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I think it depends on probably the ranking process and all that. I'm not sure how long that takes, how many firms
yeah.
turn in,
So,
so.
but we ought to be
Yeah.
able to get, by summer, get
Okay,
started
that's
into
fine.
that study.
And
Yeah.
is the question of the salt dome is going to be taken into consideration with that as well?
Yes.
As part of that process?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll back up a few slides here and do the wastewater side of things. So the one item of note that we have is there was a new wastewater treatment plant superintendent. And here we have Nate.
Hello, sir.
How are you, sir?
No, good. How are you guys today? I think okay.
So under departmental updates, Nate, we've got, if you wanted to speak a little bit to the increased daily flow that we got from Reminderville last year. On the revenue side of things, that money is coming in actually a little bit more than we had anticipated. So that's a nice revenue stream coming in. It sounds like the plant is doing well with it.
Yeah, and the increased flow that's picked up from Minderville, the plant's able to handle that currently. When we had that big melt off with the almost inch of rain on top of that, they were right on par for what they deemed their daily flow was, just under 650,000 gallons with that. So that's at a high capacity when everything's full. But it is, so far the plant's able to handle treatment process-wise, the operation process-wise to stay within the NPDS parameters.
Great.
What's our total flow per day?
Average daily flow for last year was about 3.5 million gallons.
And what's our maximum flow?
Maximum daily flow is 5.8, but we do have the ability to treat up peak hourly up to 10.2. So we have storm tanks that are in the front that we can actually hold water in to help basically slow it down so that we can treat it at a later date.
So with the increased flow from Reminderville, do we need to invest in additional capital, or we have the capacity now, it's not affecting us?
We have capacity now. What we did was, we figured out the total build out of the city, how much capacity we would need. We determined that we would have extra capacity.
Okay,
And so we sold them 600,000 gallons of capacity.
thank you.
Nate, can you explain to me what that means, the overflow from Reminderville?
So the Reminderville area, the sanitary flow comes into our Willowbrook lift station and then is pumped to our plant. So that would be all of the water that would be from the residential area, any commercial that's over there, is then transported from that area through our lift stations, through our trunk mains to the facility itself.
Reminderville used to have its own wastewater treatment plant, and so through negotiations and coordination with county, state, we were able to take on the flow, and they tap in fee, and so now we're receiving all the sanitary, so that wastewater station, correct me if I'm wrong, turned into a lift station.
Correct.
And not pushable to us.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and that was a long-term project. I think when we were pulling out the initial phase of that, it was,
6 years.
It may be longer now.
I think it was longer than
It goes
that.
back to Campbell.
Yeah, it
Sarah,
was a while.
do Reminderville residents pay a flat rate? I know when I was there, it was DOES, so we just paid a flat fee.
It's still flat rate.
It's still
Still flat rate?
Yeah.
It's a 50% surcharge.
They pay
compared to
1.5.
city customers.
Gotcha.
As did this township.
Gotcha.
What does that bring in every year roughly?
We think it's going to be around $800,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's great.
I don't keep it on that.
All that money goes, you are right, it all goes, but on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, we'll talk about where all of that money is going to go, because Nate has some plans for the plant over the next few years.
Yeah, a handful of years.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'll just kind of go through the list here for capital needs for the plant. So the top one, tertiary treatment process upgrade. So we currently have micro strainers, and the purpose of that is to help remove suspended solids or solids that are going to float in the effluent before it goes out to Tinker's Creek. The units that are in place there are 40-plus years old. The parts are no longer being made. Fortunately, we have a stockpile of some pieces and parts that we need. After I started, I've been working with Chris and with B&N, an engineering firm, to start looking at some of our options. I've actually gone out and seen some basically new style filters that we can incorporate into the footprint of our plant and actually have a better quality effluent with it. There'll be a capital expense with that, but long-term wise, they'll replace that aging equipment. So along with that, the ultraviolet disinfection process, we currently have a chlorine gas treatment. So during the summer months, we treat the effluent with chlorine to reduce the E. coli that goes out into the Tinker's Creek. And that's a very old, antiquated system, and we're looking at with being and also in a study currently to upgrade that to UV systems so that we don't have to have the chlorine cylinders, we don't have to have the danger of that with the employees, and now also just the aspect of being able to get that here, with shipping delays and the increased on chemical costs. So we're looking at that.
Well, that system was originally put in 1974 and upgraded in 1988. So it's served its
So you got your use out of it.
So
So third option is the drying bed modification. So currently we use those drying beds for a handful of purposes. That's where the salt that comes over, we store that. We also, when we produce cake from our anaerobic digestion, we have the ability to place that there before it's hauled off site for land application. We're looking at some different ideas currently to actually increase the size of that and actually have it covered. Those are things that are regulated by the EPA, that we need to have a mandated amount of storage and that these things need to be covered to protect the waterways. For sanitary collection system modifications, there's a handful of different projects that will be coming up in the future for some relining, some areas that have infiltration coming into them. And what that is, when we have a high water table or we have a snow melt off with a lot of rain, that I can actually make our flow increase from the 3.4 that my average daily is to go. That's what makes that go up to the 10 million gallons. In theory, that shouldn't happen. We have a sanitary, we don't have combined sewers, so that number should stay fairly consistent with it. The next item is the sewer Vector air blower. Our Vector truck we have, on my first day, I was absolutely shocked on how well that these guys have taken care of it in the past, but unfortunately it is old. So that's, it's a thank you. It looks, the guys have taken very good care of it. I was surprised on how well it still works.
What's normal life expectancy though? Is that
maybe 8 to 10 years if you're lucky. So that's why I was
25?
yeah. So just my
we've got a couple guys that are car guys.
yeah, and they've taken
There's restorations and stuff. They
Yeah.
they
Well, you
love
get-
their truck.
You get historical plates on it now.
exactly. They might like that.
What's the timeline for those upcoming capital needs at the wastewater treatment plant?
Well, these are kind of stepped. Currently, the tertiary process, the ultraviolet, and the drying bed are all kind of lumped into some studies right now.
Okay.
Some of these ideas we're looking at maybe getting into past the study phase into the design aspect. So we're talking maybe 2 to 3 years, something like that.
Because that lists $4.3 million, and man, you got a lot of money though. You got 3.8 rough now in the capital, and 3.6 as a surplus in the in any balance in the revenue. So-
And part of the study is actually to look at it to say, hey, is it are we going to be doing these as separate projects? Are we going to be doing this as a lump? Because then that number would be fairly great if we were to lump all those together. So we're looking at those, options as well.
Are these projects grant available?
Some things, I have to personally look into that,
Okay.
but that's part of what the engineering firm would help with that. I know that they've looked at options where we can actually, finance some of this stuff with an extremely low interest rate.
Sure.
So that might be an option as well. We just got to dig for some of that stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we've been building up revenues in that sewer revenue fund for a couple years, knowing that this was coming. The sewer improvement money, that is shared with Amy, and she has some plans for a piece of that money
I understand
as
it
well.
because we use
so-
it for road projects.
Exactly. Yep.
I know.
Amy and Chris get to fight that out.
But if you need it, if you don't need it,
More for the general,
but
for
if it's
everybody.
3 years out, you're going to have additional capital
Right.
funds
Right.
pouring
Coming
in
in.
Yep.
there because what's the percentage of capital that gets put in there for every bill?
For sewer revenue?
Yeah. Do we split the money
We don't,
coming into capital?
it all goes into sewer revenue for that. The connection fees go into sewer improvement.
Okay,
Yeah.
but those are pretty much gone at this point.
We actually are still getting quite a bit in right now.
Well, but we used to do.
But it's fallen off,
So
yeah.
the connection fee was $10,000. We used to do 200, 300 a year. Now we do 20.
Okay.
All right.
Question.
Yes.
How do we get a tour of that place?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
How do we get a tour?
It's a really good tour.
Just shoot me an email. Just shoot me an email.
I'll pay for a ticket. $5 or $8. You know what I mean?
Is that before or after you get your car out of impound?
That is expensive. Wow. Yeah, I want in on that.
Yeah.
I don't know, we could maybe set something up.
Oh, 100%. I'd love that.
Because I'm sure I'm not the only one up there who would like to take a little tour.
Yeah, we'll get it catered. It'd be great.
Right? We'll eat right inside there. Yeah, it'd be
A little
nice.
picnic out on the lawn by the.
There you go.
It'd be nice.
Yeah,
Make
get
sure
the
we
rain
sit
gardens
down.
growing.
I don't mind.
Yeah,
I wanna
It's
sit
nice
down.
over there.
yeah. No, that'd be
But I would
fantastic.
like to see it. We talk about all these things. It'd be nice to put a picture to what you're talking about. Like you could talk about the flux capacitor, and I'll just nod my head and go, okay, you need a
Yes.
flux capacitor. But if you actually,
We've got something like that down there.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
But if that's a tour, I can visualize and understand what you're talking about and see,
Yeah.
the process.
Yes, I'd love to have everybody there.
Would anyone else like to?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Has anybody been to?
No, in fact, my kids want to go to it too. They would love to see that. Yeah.
The school used to come every year.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Environmental commission.
You should take
Impressive.
third graders through every year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry, Nate.
Oh,
Continue.
no problem, no
We'll find
problem.
like an after work time. Like if
Did you hit all those items?
There's one left.
Okay.
With the sludge conditioning equipment, I think this one is probably the farthest out, but just based on some EPA regulations that are through the permit, there's different nutrients that are getting lower and lower aspects, and that money was something that we want to plan in the future to be able to look at what we could actually do at the plant to meet those regulations that, even though they're not here now, when this permit expires in 4 years, they potentially could happen at that point. And I just want to be ahead of the curve with that type of stuff, so that we can actually meet that parameter and protect Tinker's Creek.
And then for the current year capital, that's our last item under wastewater. It's the same stuff, same items that were approved through CIB and through the temporary budget last fall. So if there's any remaining questions, but it's a relatively small number, about 70,000 for this year.
Okay.
And it's all replacement.
Yeah.
Yep.
So any
With
other,
all that old equipment then, it just gets recycled.
Yeah.
Scrapped.
Anything that we can get rid of, we option too.
Yeah, govdeals.com.
yeah,
We do good there?
yeah, we do.
Get crap for that stuff.
Oh, no.
Get me started.
He's going to fit in at wastewater.
Any other questions for Nate or for Chris or for Ski?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
fellas.
Thank you.
And let me know about the tour. That's
All
no
right.
problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got to.
Think of like a late afternoon when we all get off work, and what time do you normally finish work?
I'll stay that day, no problem.
4:30.
Chief Morgan, how are you, sir?
Thanks, guys. Hello, Chief.
Hello.
And Chief Morgan is, he's an expert at this, so I don't need to help him along.
All right, well, you can see the numbers on the first slide here. Modest increase from last year's expenses in the budget. And when you roll in the $600,000 that was included in 2020 from the COVID relief funds, you can see just a pretty steady increase, kind of steady percentage of increase. The biggest thing in 2021 is by August we had gotten up to 10 full-timers per shift, and that was a nice milestone for us, and it's working out nicely. As far as under the departmental updates, you see there the part-time hiring continues. It's really a competitive market out there right now, and it's just hard to move fast enough to grab some of these guys before they get jobs elsewhere. So we're looking at revamping that process a little bit, waiting for the arrival of our new HR director, and hopefully she'll have some ideas maybe that can help us along and get that going to help supplement our staffing from day to day. And then the cadet program is working fairly nicely. We actually had one of our first cadets drop out of the program. The load from the medic class was just a little more than he was prepared to handle. But we had another young man step into his place. And so we have 2 cadets that are doing great work over there and showing a lot of promise. So we're excited about that and how that will be our way of kind of our own farm team and growing them ourselves. Local kids that know the neighborhood or know the community and the people. So we're excited about that. We are working on some grants. There are actually 2020 grants, FEMA grants, that were awarded in 21, but it was late enough in the year that we said we'll just sit on them, initiate things in 22, and get them taken care of. So we have the grant has 3 parts to it. One is the exhaust capture system for the trucks up at Station 2. That facility doesn't have a system in it at this point, so we'll put a system in that's similar to the one we have here at Station 1, and that'll capture all the exhaust off the trucks and filter it and vent it to the outside. Another one is a power cot. As you know, we transitioned to the power cot several years ago, and we've gotten a couple, we've bought a couple, we've got help with grants, so we've been trying to work that angle to help purchase these because they're about $22,000, $23,000 a piece. And that's just the cot. There's also a load system that actually goes into the ambulance to receive it, and that's another $20,000 per unit. But we have seen a pretty, especially in the first couple of years, we saw a pretty significant decrease in back injuries and other strains and those kind of injuries. So they're worth it. So we have a new one coming, which is good because we're going to have 2 med units coming. So we'll have a new one to put on one of those vehicles. The other part of that is thermal imaging cameras. That helps us see through the smoke and in the dark to see heat signatures in the firefighting environment. And actually that can be used in other lost person kind of searches in the woods and things of that nature as well. But we have 3 new thermal imaging cameras coming. And we will repurpose some of our older units to the backline trucks. So all of our trucks will have a thermal imaging camera available on them. A primary high quality thermal imaging cameras. We all have some cheaper ones. They're a couple $100 a piece, but they're not as robust and as useful, and they're not rated for high heat environments, so they're kind of disposable. But these new units will high quality and really help us out in the firefighting scenarios. So the upcoming capital needs, kind of some of the ones that have been lingering out there for a while, just making repairs at Station 1 and replacing one of our ladder trucks. So Station 1, again, is a 40-some-year-old building. The service department contractor has been chasing roof leaks around continuously, trying to patch those. We have drainage issues in the bays, and there's just parts of it are showing its age. If you drive past the front of the station and look at the lintels over the overhead doors, they're all starting to sag a little bit. So it's just something we're going to have to address at some point, and unfortunately, it won't be cheap. So we're hoping.
Do we have a cost estimate of that at this point?
Nothing solid. We did
Okay.
a study a couple years ago that did some conceptual stuff, but I know Service Department had a contractor out to look at those lentils, for example, to replace those, and I've not heard a report back on cost on
They're like
that.
36 months out
So,
before you get that.
Okay.
so those are some of the kind of things we're.
Yeah, I know.
We're looking
Yeah, I know.
at.
We had a conversation. Either at the last finance meeting or the one prior, where we were talking about 5-year out type projects. So okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the ladder truck replacement, we have a committee formed that's looking at that. Both of our ladder trucks are 22 years old. Recommended life cycle is 20 years. At the 25-year mark, to stay compliant with NFPA recommendations.
Have to come out.
Well, they have to either come out or do a significant refurbishment.
Okay.
And just ballpark refurbishment numbers we're getting is $500,000.
Wow.
So,
Not worth it.
but the new truck is, a new ladder truck at this point is probably going to be about 1.5. So,
So there's a committee put together to determine the validity of what, getting one or two,
well,
or
right now, we're going to replace one.
okay.
And we're looking at the potential of refurbishing the second one to lengthen its life a little bit, to get the replacement cycles of these two big pieces.
Yeah, I would like to have those
separated a
not
little
on the
bit.
same cycle.
Yeah.
Chief, is that by another 5 years on that NFPA research?
5 to 8
Ish.
years, probably something like that.
Okay.
At least 5 years apart.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but I mean, as far as, you can't just use them forever. right?
You
I mean,
can't just use them
Just
forever.
for the purposes of clarification, that even if you recert it at 25,
Yeah.
it's a,
Yeah.
you're buying for yourself 5 years, basically, correct? Ish.
5, 8, 10 years, something like that.
Okay.
It depends on wear and tear and upkeep, and Fred and his guys have done a great job.
Sure.
Even this year, we've had to have some welds fixed on the underbody of ladder 2, and that's the one we're looking at replacing first. Even though they're the same age, ladder 2 has required more maintenance and repairs, and it's got the most miles and the most hours on it. So that's the one we're.
Ladder 2 at the end? What do you do with ladder 2?
It'll be sold.
What do you get for something like for a 22-year-old?
Boy, it really
ladder
depends.
with a million miles?
It depends. Probably maybe a couple $100,000 if you're
Really?
lucky.
Yep.
If you're lucky,
Well, that would offset the cost of the 500 a little bit, maybe.
potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It just depends on the market, but,
Oh,
and what's available.
Right.
Okay.
It's all about timing.
In the interest of time, we got 7 minutes.
Go,
so, sorry.
okay, absolutely. So, capital this year, we have decided to buy 2 med units this year. As a result of that, I think the initial request had in a replacement vehicle for me. My car's over 100,000 miles, and the fenders are starting to flap in the wind a little bit, but we can wait another year. But we'll get 2 med units. They're in line to be built, and the build time right now is a little over a year. That's the backlog. So we hope to see them
Mid 23.
hopefully early '23
Okay.
is what we're keeping our fingers crossed for. Again, the federal grant, we have to pay 10% of that grant, so that's our share. We got a replacement copier. We're replacing some station furniture. When our guys do get a chance to sit down and relax, we want them to be comfortable, and we want them to be able to legitimately rest. So we're gonna get some new beds and some new recliners and chairs. We're replacing our boat. Our boat's 18 years old. It's a rubber inflatable boat, and it's still decent for being 8 years old, but some of the seams are starting to separate. We've had to patch a little bit, so it's time for replacement there. The Life Pack monitor lease, this is the last year for that, so those are paid off, and we'll continue to use those for several more years. And then the engine lease, I believe this is year 4 or 5 out of 10. So we've got a little ways to go on the engine lease.
Okay.
And I think that's all I've got. So any questions?
Any other questions for Chief? Sorry, I don't mean to rush you.
No, I understand.
Go ahead.
Do they still have Feel the Heat?
I'm sorry?
Does the state still offer Feel the Heat? Which is the,
They haven't for several years.
Fine.
I don't know if it's still,
okay.
if
just had some new
it might be
members that
something
was
that comes
available.
back. They had issues with their burn building for a while, so, and they've gone through a couple different superintendents, so the different programming down there, but
I signed up to go a couple years ago and they canceled it due to low attendance. Just
Okay.
not enough people signed up.
You count dispatching calls or calls? Or is that the fire, or the police department that counts the dispatching calls?
they count the dispatch calls.
Thank you.
And for what it's worth, our call volume is about 10% of that.
Thank you.
One last thing, real quick. I mentioned the price of the apparatus. Almost all the apparatus builders are doing double-digit price increases this year.
Sure.
Our turnout gear, we got word from our current vendor that their price increases probably got to be about 25%.
Okay.
So it's been a bargain up till recently. We're going to start shopping some other vendors now. But we're seeing a lot of that all over the place.
Yeah.
Our exam gloves that we wear in the med units, that they've tripled in cost. So those are some of the things we're trying to keep a handle on, and so far we're doing okay, but we're concerned. So,
Same.
Thanks, Chief.
you're welcome.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Chief.
All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions about the 2022 permanent appropriation? All right, so at this point, I'd like to make a motion that Finance Committees recommends it to full council.
I make a second.
Mr. Fury seconds. All in favor? Mr. Bellin, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's 3-0. We will recommend that to council. Sarah, next up, American Rescue Plan, additional funds.
Yeah, I had a couple more slides there. American Rescue Plan, we got an extra $4,000. The communities that did not apply for their funding, it came back to the state, and then the state redistributed it, so the $4,000 is the share that we will get. My suggestion to council is to hang on to that extra $4,000 for that Door Ridge project for next year.
I have no problem with that.
And then last item for tonight, I just want to let everybody know the Ohio Checkbook site is, it's up and running. It is not live to the public yet. We're doing a final review. I had March 28th down there, but we got in a couple pretty hefty public records requests, so it'll probably be by the end of the month that we can review that site and get it out to the public. We are joining 11 other Summit County cities that participate in that program, so we're excited to get that rolled out later this month.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. All right, any other comments or questions from the Finance Committee? Members of council? Mayor? Law Director? Sarah?
No, nothing from
All right, any miscellaneous? No? All right, next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on April 26th at 6 p.m.?
Yes.
At 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And with that, we will adjourn the Finance Committee meeting at 6:58 p.m.